Welcome back to Lifecast with Ryan Leak. I am your host, Basti Cruz. And we've got Ryan here, and we're talking about one of those subjects that is much easier said than done.
Yes.
Drum roll. Forgiveness. So, Ryan, I mean, you come for everybody's life when you write books like Unoffendable. You know, we're talking about being self-aware, being better. So what, in your mind, what are the steps to forgiveness?
Well, in one of our previous episodes, we talk about how sometimes there can be a lightness that I kind of carry when it comes to just forgive them, it's not, I know sometimes I can talk that way, but I realize the heaviness of it, how serious it is, how hard it is. And it's a hard but necessary thing that we need to do.
For sure.
Again, I know a lot of people that listen to Lifecast or watch on YouTube aren't Christ followers. There is no way for me personally that I could walk in forgiveness without the love of Jesus, personally. And I think the first step in forgiving someone else is receiving the forgiveness of God. When you realize what you have been let off of the hook for, it's always going to be much easier to extend that to someone else. So for me, the first step is realizing you need forgiveness. And sometimes it's like I'm holding on to this thing because of what you've done to me without the recollection of realizing the things that we've done to other people. In our minds, we've never broken anyone else's heart. Does that make sense?
Yes.
In our mind, all we can see is our own pain, and sometimes you have to step up just a little bit, elevate our perspective, and just realize, wait a second, I've been on the other end of some of the things that have caused me pain, and sometimes we'll do a comparison. Well, I didn't do this, but man, if we took a fine-tooth comb through any one of our lifestyles, any one of our histories, there's a lot of bad there.
Yeah.
And to receive forgiveness from God, I think is the first step to truly walking in forgiveness.
You know, it's so interesting because I think it's what you said. We don't ever think that we are going to break somebody's heart or cause the pain, right?
Right.
We only can say, well, they did this to me. I was hurt. I have a right to hold on to this. Right. And I have a right to feel the way I feel. So it's to your point of, just learning that we have been right off the hook for so many things, and forgiveness. God doesn't think twice about forgiving us. We ask for it. He forgives us. Right. So in our life, when you think about forgiveness, again, we're talking, what does it mean reconciliation? Does it mean that you're still, I forgive you and we're going to go to the mall tomorrow and, I forgive you. And I understand that there's different levels, right, of hurt and pain.
Sure.
But I'm talking about like someone that high level, right? So I forgive you. Come over for dinner tomorrow.
Yeah. Some of the most difficult people to forgive are the ones that we don't get a choice to not have proximity with, especially when they're family.
Oh, that's so true.
Or someone that potentially we work with. Sometimes the only way we would ever have proximity is if we quit, or if they were fired, or if they quit, vice versa. So, but no, I don't think forgiveness equals reconciliation. In fact, I think we could do a whole season on boundaries.
Sure.
And sort of creating those and having healthy boundaries with people. I don't think it's forgive and forget. I think it's forgive and learn. And so sometimes there is something of me going, I'm going to let you off the hook, but I'm not going to continue to put myself in a position for you to hurt me.
That's good.
Proverbs says, as a dog returns to his own vomit, so a fool returns to its own folly. And sometimes we will return to the same relationships.
Mm-hmm.
We will return to the same toxic behaviors, expecting a different result.
Yeah.
And then have the nerve to get mad at God for us being in the same cycle. And so sometimes to break that cycle, sometimes you have to break the proximity to the person that is causing you pain.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're breaking the proximity because you're the one causing them pain, and they don't have the strength to walk away from you.
Yes.
And so I don't always believe that forgiveness equals reconciliation. In fact, I am pro forgiveness from a distance.
Yeah.
You know, I can forgive you all the way over here.
Mm-hmm.
And God bless you
yes.
over there.
Can keep you at arm's length.
But there are just some relationships that are just so toxic, and they don't know how to not be toxic around each other. And so sometimes the best thing is to create some separation. The way to really know that is to involve the right people. You want to have a good set of somewhat unbiased, objective perspectives in your life. That's why I always recommend people find mentors, and they're constantly reaching out to people. There will never be a shortage of people in this world that want to give their advice to other people.
Never.
So to be able
so
to find some godly older wisdom, to someone that has learned a lot of lessons, that can look back and say, hey, here's some perspective. I'm very much a fan of counseling, of being able to go, hey, what?
Yes.
Invite another referee in to be able to make some calls for you to say, hey, is this a person? Sometimes a person needs a second chance, and I'm all for a second chance. Mm-hmm. When we start getting into 10th and 11th,
yes,
that
you're not learning something at that point.
Yeah, you're not learning.
At that point, you've invited that toxic culture.
Right.
It's part of that relationship.
Yep.
And you keep going back to it. It's kind of like a friend and I were having a conversation, and she was telling me that she got to the point in her single life where she was like, Vasti, because she was in an abusive relationship, physical and emotional. She said, when I left that relationship and I went through the healing process, she's like, I remember getting to a point where I was so desperate to have somebody that if they didn't emotionally abuse me, physically or verbally, I accepted the liar. I accepted all of it. So I really wasn't learning from my past. I was just accepting what was coming to me. They were still hurting me, but I was still like, well, at least they didn't beat me. And I'm like, wow. So it's like the whole going back to the vomit. If you don't learn from it and you don't break that cycle, the hardest thing for us to do in life is change. Change is hard for everyone. I like change.
Yeah, I do too.
I like it. It keeps things exciting in my life. But I will say that even though I like it, at some point in the journey of change, I do get kind of like, ooh, I actually like the way that was. And I think that's the whole thing with forgiveness, is that people forgive and they think that the relationship is going to be the same exact way.
Right.
And it's like, no, it's like what you said. You have to put a hard stop. You have to put boundaries there. Right. So it's like you have to pull away from that to really say, this is what's healthy for me and you.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, sometimes people change their number for a reason.
Yes.
Because they have to.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So how do we forgive people that will never change and that will continue to keep hurting us? Especially if it's a person that we're married to, a sibling, a parent, a coworker.
Again, I'm a Jesus person. And so that's always going to be my go-to. It's always going to be sort of my gut reaction is, what did Jesus say? What's interesting about Jesus? If Jesus was here today, I think Christians would hate him.
Man, that's
and the reason I say that is because his response to things is never what we want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think perhaps one of the most polarizing, one of the most debatable, one of the most controversial statements Jesus ever made was, love your enemies. It's like, dude, do you know what an enemy is?
Mm.
And loving your enemy is this lofty idea until you have one. You know,
That's so
it's like
true.
as soon as you have one, it's like, wait, you want me to do what? He then goes on to say, do good to those who hate you, which is just like, I mean, that just flips our entire culture upside down. That's not, no. We're trying to take down the people
for sure
that are against us.
Mm-hmm.
Bless those who curse you. The people that we can't stand are not the people that we would buy lunch for. The people that we would speak blessings over. And then he caps it off and he says something that I think is extremely practical. I don't know that I've ever talked to anybody who's done it. Pray for those who hurt you. Pray for those who hurt you. Which is just like,
that's wow.
That's a only, and honestly, that's probably why I follow Jesus. Because it's like, who does that? Do you know what is required to pull that off? You have to be such a different kind of person.
Yeah.
To be able to think about the people in your life that have hurt you the most. It's like you barely pray for people that like you love.
Yeah.
You know, let alone people that have talked about you, have cheated on you, have ridiculed you, who've talked about you behind your back.
Mm-hmm.
To say their name out loud to God, to me is the path to forgiveness, and the people that won't change, that will continually hurt you. I think it's important that you have some healthy boundaries, but I do think you should pray for that person.
So you really think I should pray for my ex-husband? Now, I don't wish him bad.
Sure.
I've let that go.
Right.
Forgiven him. But I should add him in my prayers?
I want to answer your question, but I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
How did you know when you forgave him? What was sort of the litmus test of going, I forgive him? At what point did you hear news of something going on in his life and it not fire you
like
up?
Gut punch me?
Right.
I think we're in 2020. I've been divorced now 4 years.
It's been 4 years.
It's been 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I think that it was probably about a year ago or a year and a half ago. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was a year ago, a year and a half ago. I was on the phone with a friend of mine and they were delivering news. They're like, I just want to let you know, just before it gets to you. And I'm like, how is it going to get to me? I'm in Dallas. Like, and I don't follow on social media or whatever.
Sure.
And I remember them telling me, and I wasn't upset, like angry, like, oh my God. But I was like, you know what? Good for him. Good. And it was something that I had kind of like helped foster, like, you know, something that I motivated him to do, that they said he finally did it. And I was like, good for him. And I remember hanging up, because when you go through something like a divorce, because no one marries to get a divorce, but when you go through something like a divorce and it was a deliberate offense, right? Like my ex-husband was unfaithful. But when I think back to everything, I also had to own my part, right? I had to walk away and say, okay, I own my part of this. But however, I feel like I gave him a lot of power in those years of me crying and being upset, that I said, I can't give you any more power. So what can I do? Be happy for him. You know what? Wish him the best. Bless him in his new endeavors, whatever he's doing in his life. Not that I don't care, like, if he were to drop dead tomorrow, I mean, knock on wood, but I would be sad. but it wouldn't be that sting like 5-6 years ago when I was married to him, right? So I think that's when I knew, when I could see something good happening for him and actually thinking, wow, good for him. And now it's just like, I don't know. It's something that I don't put a lot of thought to it. But
Sure.
I also have never said, Lord, I pray for, and I pray you bless him. You know, I've also never said that. And sometimes I ask myself, like, does that mean that I haven't forgiven him because I'm not praying for him?
I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I would say praying for someone that has hurt you, or in your case, praying for an ex, ensures that he stays forgiven. It's an insurance policy.
That's good.
You know, it's a... Now, I'm not saying that, you know, he should be on your bathroom mirror, you know, put his name up every day.
Yeah.
But I think to have his name in the rotation, his family in the rotation, I think that is good for our soul.
No, you're right.
To say, you know, to look at our anything, our ex-boss, someone that's hurt us, to regularly pray for them, to say, God, you know, I think it is a practical activity for us to say, you know what, I don't want to live with this. And sometimes the residue, sometimes things just come up. You don't even know that you are still hurt about something. I think it's important. I mean, I'm thinking of a couple of names right now that I'm just like, yeah, I probably need to pray for them because I've given them some thought life space. And I really should have been giving them a little bit more prayer life space to say, no, Lord, I want to actually pray
thought life space versus prayer life space. That's good. That's good because we all give everybody more thought space than pray for them.
Oh yeah.
Or pray about the situation.
Right.
So that one right there, that's a good one. Write that down. If you're listening, if you're watching, write it down. The next thing I wanted to kind of, as we're talking, is how do you move toward forgiveness? How do you keep this like part of your lifestyle? You know,
some people, honestly, sometimes the biggest step in forgiveness is deciding that you want to. Like just making a decision, like, I want to forgive. Because sometimes you've been so hurt, that's all you got left.
Yeah,
You stole everything from me.
For sure.
You took my joy, you took my peace, you took my stuff, you took my life, you took my business. You feel like holding on is all I have to hold on to. And so I think making the decision, because I don't think forgiveness is an overnight thing. I really do believe it is a journey. But making the decision that I want to, I think is the step forward to even saying out loud, Lord, I want to forgive this person.
That's good.
And wanting to. Saying it out loud is so massive because until you want to, we don't really do a whole lot of things that we don't want to do. Until we have said it out loud, until we've said, hey, Lord, help me get to this place where it's honest, not where I'm just saying that I've done it, but to where it's truly in my heart, I've truly given this to you. Because I don't believe forgiveness is saying, hey, what this person did wrong is right.
Yeah.
I think what forgiveness really is saying, I'm no longer holding this person responsible for my wholeness.
Yes.
I'm going to go to God for my wholeness, and I'm going to let them off the hook. Because we all believe if they would just apologize, I would forgive them.
Yeah.
That would make me whole. Apologies don't make people whole.
No, you're right.
And so I think the good news for anybody listening, anybody watching is that there is a life available to them where they could move on without an apology. And some people will stand in line for 30 years waiting for an apology, and that person will go to the grave, and they never got their apology. And they will lose decades of their life, waiting for someone to try to fix something.
That is very true, because I had to forgive him before getting that apology. When I got the apology recently...
Oh, I didn't know that.
I thought I told you.
You told me that?
When our friend died.
Ah, yeah.
When we had our friend that hooked us up died, one of his best friends.
Oh, wow.
And when he died, and he called me to tell me that he died, I was obviously like, wow, I'm so sorry. this is tough, whatever. Hung up. About a week and a half later, I get the call. And it was him. And I'm like, why is he calling me again? And I answered, and he just says to me his spiel of, I'm asking for forgiveness. Wow. And I remember I was driving on 35, trying not to get killed. And I remember feeling like, wow, like, because I had already forgiven him, right, it didn't do anything. It actually, it did make me feel like I'm not crazy, Like, it did validate that part of, like, I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew I wasn't, like, going through whatever. However, when I hung up, I think I didn't tell a lot of people for like a while, like maybe a week or two had passed because I was processing. And I went to my counselor and she was like, well, how did it make you feel? And I said, it just, I don't know. It felt like just normal. It just felt like, okay, thanks. And she says, and that's how you know you're walking in forgiveness. She said, because if you weren't, you would have hung up that phone and you would have went on your social media like, and I finally got my apology. Sure. And you would have wrote all these quotes. And I'm just like, I just think that when I got the apology, and I remember telling certain people and them feeling like, oh, okay, now I can forgive them. Because it's funny how people in my life thought that what happened to me happened to them. So it was almost like they couldn't forgive him until I forgave him. And I'm just like, hey, this didn't happen to you. It happened to me. Right. So I think... And
that's a thing.
And I was about to... That's what I was about to segue. And I'm going a little off our script. Yeah, but I was going to say, what do you do with people in your life that when you have forgiven a person that has hurt you, that has betrayed you, that has just done the worst things to you, and you've forgiven them, what do you do with your family or your friends that say, how could you?
Right. It's like secondhand forgiveness.
Yes. Yeah. And some of these people are Christian too, right? They love Jesus. And so how do you deal with that dynamic? Or even, I'm going to ask you too, a person that's living in a home with a person that they have forgiven, like I know couples that have gone through infidelity and they've restored their marriage. Or I know a couple that husband bankrupt them. She had no idea. Betrayal, right? How do they keep that? And their circle knowing like, wow, they've forgiven them. I guess I should too. Like, how do you keep that all healthy?
I think there needs to be a constant reminder in your space of what exactly it is that we're doing here. And what I mean by that is, I think there needs to be a constant reminder of the grace of God. And I think we so easily move on and forget about what the grace of God not has done for us, is doing, what is saving us from in the future. And I think the grace of God is so underestimated that we sometimes forget to extend it to other people. And I think that's a daily thing. I don't think that's a one and done. And I think when you start talking about secondhand forgiveness of, me holding on to something that really is someone else's to carry, it's weird. It's kind of an oxymoron. When that person was hurting, it was like, I want you to carry this thing with me. So they're like, okay, come on, let's lock arms. I'm gonna carry this thing with you, and then you let it go, and yet they're still holding on. And
you're like, let it go. I let it go.
They're like, but now you got to like walk them through this deal, which is kind of the dance I think we have to play a little bit when we do carry each other's burdens, because we don't often drop them at the same time. And sometimes there can be some legit concerns like, hey, are you going to forgive and reconcile? Now I feel like this is dangerous, and I feel like what they did also hurt me, and I don't want you to get hurt again or you to put yourself in that position. And that can get that can get a little tricky, which is why I'm a huge proponent of always inviting wise perspective into our lives to just say, hey, here's a situation I forgave. I'm letting this thing go. Am I seeing this thing clearly? And checks and balances. What you want to do is you want to be able to let the other person know who's still holding on to it. Hey, I'm not walking down a trap. I'm okay. Yeah. I need you to be okay.
Yeah,
okay?
For sure.
So if while I appreciate you being a friend in supporting me, you were not the victim in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if the victim is letting it go, then I think it's important that you at least, again, make a decision that you want to. You can't expect people to flip the forgiveness switch.
Yes.
Because I don't believe there is a forgiveness switch.
Yes.
I do think there is a grace and mercy reminder that we can go, you know what, yeah, I've been let off the hook. And that usually sends a release inside my soul to go, I should probably let them off the hook too.
Mm-hmm.
In light of, again, not them getting what I think they deserve, but in light of what I got that I did not deserve, I should probably extend the same thing to them.
That's good. And it's also interesting how when you forgive sometimes people that, you know, in my case, I'll use my story. Like when I forgave him and I moved on from it and whatnot, it's interesting also to see how some people saw it as weakness. You forgave him already? Like, what do you mean? And it's like, I refuse to live in the bitter barn. That was my big thing.
The bitter barn. I've never heard that.
I do not want to live in the bitter barn of divorce.
Yeah.
And I refused. So I was like, what do I have to do? The opposite. So that's why I'm saying it's like, it's interesting how some people see forgiveness as, oh, you gave them a pass. Oh, that's so weak. You forgave them?
It takes great strength to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes what people are referring to is, well, I'm going to sweep it under the rug, so I'm just going to ignore it.
Yeah.
And that's not forgiveness. That's just sweeping it under the rug.
Yeah.
But it takes great courage to forgive, contrary to popular belief.
For sure.
And if a person can find the strength to begin to let go, I think that is a worthy battle to fight.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, in your book, you talk about virtually a lifestyle of forgiveness. Mm-hmm. And what do you mean by that? What does that look like for us to live when we talk about unoffendable and forgiveness?
You know, so there's this part in the book where it's like, let's deal with some past pain. All right, now let's prepare ourselves for the future, right? You know, we talked about this in episode 1 of season 2 of like this idea of preparing for an election. Someone is going to offend you. Someone is going to hurt you over the next 2 years, over the next 5 years, over the next 10 years. This is a part of life. And if we wait for someone to hurt us to then decide who we're going to be, it's too late. It's too late because we're not great responders. We have to make a decision ahead of time as to the type of person that we want to be. So you think about what prejudice is. This is prejudging. Okay, I'm making a judgment about you before I even know you. Think of it in like, what's the opposite of that? You know, that would be what? Pre-mercy? Okay? Like it's going, is it pre-grace? Is it, you know what? I'm going to go into this meeting. It's probably somebody's going to get on my nerves, but you know what? Before they do that, I've already decided in my mind, I'm going to give them grace.
Yeah.
And it's deciding to forgive someone before they hurt you. Mm-hmm. And it's your life. It's your lifestyle. So there are, I've had friends that have said some very hurtful things over the past couple of months. And in the moment I was going, I can't believe they said that. But then I think, I already made a decision about how I was going to handle this moment. Yeah. And so, hey, I'm going to do my best to own my part and do the best that I can in this conversation and try to be unoffendable or at least try not to stay offended. Sure. And I was offended. I was very offended.
For sure.
For a solid 48. 72 hours came and I said, I got to own my part. Mm-hmm. And I can't. I'm not going to live here. Yes. I went here, but I'm not going to live here. And I've already decided the type of person that I want to be. Yeah. And I refuse to let someone else's offense. I really believe offense is a temptation to pull you out of the character of who you really are. And so I just refuse to allow someone.
Can you say that again?
Offense is a temptation to pull you out of the character of who you are.
That's so good.
I refuse to fall for that temptation. Like, you can say whatever you want. And yes, I am not Superman. I bleed. But I am not going to start being someone else in response to your offense. I'm going to keep my character intact, keep my integrity intact, and continue to live the life I believe God's called me to live.
Because then it goes back to, what do you want to be known for?
Absolutely.
And if you're constantly responding to the offense, it changes
100%.
who you are, how you act, how you respond.
Yeah.
Man, this was heavy.
Yep.
I feel challenged.
Yeah.
And I hope y'all feel challenged. And get this book, you guys. It's not gonna be a purchase that you'll regret, like those app things you bought a couple episodes ago. But this was good. Can you let us know what awesome nonprofit you're gonna highlight today? Yeah, so today I want to plug Hope International. It's a great organization that's doing some great missions work around the world. What I like about Hope International is they're not just spreading the gospel around the world. What they're also trying to do as well is provide economical solutions to people in dire situations. So it's one thing to give someone some money. It's another thing to put them in a position to create wealth for themselves. And so they're doing some pretty unique things. So go ahead and check out this video and support Hope International.
At Hope International, we look at the world around us and see beauty and potential. But we also see brokenness, broken communities, broken families, and broken dreams. We believe that God wants to restore this brokenness. Hope International's mission is to invest in the dreams of families in the world's underserved communities as we proclaim and live the gospel. We do this in 4 ways. We provide people with biblically based training, equipping them to mobilize the skills God has given them. We offer them a safe place to save money for the future. We help unlock their potential through small loans. And we disciple, pointing people toward Christ while connecting them to local churches. So what does this approach look like? Meet Marie. Marie lives in a large city in the Republic of Congo. With no formal education and few jobs available, she and her husband struggle to provide for their children. God has given Marie skills, dreams, and a great work ethic. She's a talented seamstress, but with her family's limited income, it would take her 20 years to save up $100 for a sewing machine. But what if Marie could buy a sewing machine today? Through Hope, she joins a group of entrepreneurs from her community and receives a small loan. She uses the money to make her sewing business a reality, meaning more regular income for her family. Over 6 months, her group meets every other week. During these meetings, they worship, study the Bible, complete biblically based training, save money, and make repayments together. Marie is hearing about Christ's love and learning to walk with him. Now she is more able to put her skills to work, and her family is on the path to thriving. Daniel also has big dreams for his family. Daniel is a farmer in rural Malawi. His family lives mostly on the crops he grows, and they sell whatever's left over. Even though he works hard, Daniel never seems to earn much beyond his family's daily needs. But when neighbors from a local church invite him to a savings group, he joins. Each group member saves small amounts, sometimes as little as 10 cents a week. As their collective savings grow, they can use these funds for school fees, emergencies, or to invest in businesses. With his savings, Daniel buys and raises goats, selling their kids at market, and eventually he saves enough for a cow. When the group meets together, they support one another, pray, study scripture, and learn how God has equipped them to provide for others in their churches and communities. Now, Daniel has more hope for the future. Around the world, we're seeing men and women use the gifts God has placed in their hands, their time, dreams, and talents, to break the cycle of poverty. We're seeing them reconciled to their Creator and their dignity restored. We're seeing relationships thrive within families, neighborhoods, and communities. That's how hope helps families flourish. Learn more about investing in dreams at hopeinternational.org.
Thanks for checking out today's episode with Lifecast with Ryan Leak. If you loved this episode, you felt challenged, we want you to do a few things. We want you to rate it, we want you to review it, and we want you to subscribe. And we want you to share it with a friend. So, until next time, we're out.
Holla.